Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. A state lawmaker is asking voters to promote him. State Representative Mike Speedy is one of several Republicans running for Congressman Greg Pence's seat. Pence is not seeking another term. He sat down with our government reporter, Garrett Berquist.
With us now is Mike Speedy. Mike, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you, Garrett. Good to be here.
So why are you running for Congress?
Because I love my country and I'm deeply concerned in the direction that's going. And I feel that to those much is given, much is required. And for me, that means the duty to step up and run.
So you've served for about 15 years in the Indiana General Assembly, and you've also served on the Indianapolis City County Council. How would you use that experience in Congress?
I think it's a very important experience. My primary experience is in building a company that's been successful. If I wouldn't be here today if I wasn't able to have a successful company. But in addition to that business experience, my experience both on the local level and as a state legislator gives me a leg up. When you head to Washington, you automatically understand the importance of relationships, of procedure, how to disagree without being disagreeable, how to push and where to push. So I think it's a tremendous asset that I offer the 6th District by having that prior part-time legislative experience.
Republicans have made border security a central focus of this campaign. What's your plan for both border security, but then also the legal immigration system?
When I was in Yuma County, and you can see this at speedybordertrip.com or on YouTube, Mike Speedy for Congress, you will actually see huge stacks of wall material waiting to be installed that have just sat there for years under the Biden administration. And so once that wall is secured, once that border is secure, that's the time for an immigration discussion. Prior to that, it does not serve any purpose until we reestablish the rule of law and we secure the border. Immigration reform is going to be incredibly complex. There's going to be many, many layers to it. But I believe those who came over to during the Biden administration must go home, must go back before we can find a proper way for them to be here.
What about people who came over the border because they did not feel safe in their home countries? Why do a blanket deportation? Shouldn't we take those cases case by case?
Well, we need to figure those out, and we can't have that discussion until we secure the border.
Would you support a nationwide abortion ban?
There's a legitimate policy out there that recognizes that fetuses feel pain, and I recognize that fetuses feel pain, and I would want to have a debate on that, understanding that that is a reality of the abortion. To what extent that ban is in place, I would want to look at the pain that the fetus experiences, the baby experiences, and so I would be open to that debate and that ban around roughly that time.
So to be clear, if lawmakers did bring forth a federal abortion ban bill in Congress, what gestational age would you look for?
So it's important that we reestablish a culture of life. I've done that as a state legislator. If we're going to protect babies, just create a culture of life, then we have to stand for we have to stand for that at every level of government. I haven't established a hard and fast rule, but I will tell you that, or a hard and fast time period. But the pain that a baby feels in the womb is a good place for me to, for all of us to recognize, and I would be voicing that if I had the opportunity.
You've called for creating a pro-crypto business environment. Given the collapse of some cryptocurrencies, is that wise?
I think there's ways to secure crypto for the future. It has the ability to create a very private, secure method of currency, and I would be open to, with that understanding, creating a regulatory regime around crypto. If we could provide it, if we could again make sure that it's a private, highly secure system of currency.
You've also called for, as you put it, putting an end to what you call the administrative state. How would you do that, and how do you plan to do that without jeopardizing a lot of the services that so many federal agencies provide?
Well, you can at first increase the level of accountability that you have for these, the ABC government, if you will, the alphabet government. You can do that by putting the most expensive decisions, most impactful decisions that they make back before Congress. If it has an impact of, say, just randomly $50 million, it's an up or down vote in Congress. Ultimately, these decisions should be handled by an elected official and not the deep state or an administrative state or someone who's not accountable to the voter, but has every bit the authority and power of law. So again, you start by putting major decisions back into Congress where they were intended from our founders.
But then once you start doing that, and presumably you start getting rid of some services, how do you fill the gap left behind by those services?
Maybe those services weren't needed to begin with. And we have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. But we have to control the power of the federal government. It's gotten way too big, and I want to see it put back in the constitutional box in which it came.
Republicans have remained united on the issue of aid to Israel, but they've split over whether to do the same for Ukraine. Where do you fall on that?
I would like to see the borders prioritized before any other funds or any other help goes to Ukraine. I am a huge friend of Israel. I've traveled there 4 times. Israel has a right to exist. The Jewish people and the Israeli people have a right to defend themselves. If we do not stop radical Islam in Israel, then it's going to be emboldened throughout Europe and ultimately in the United States.
All right, coming up, we hear from another congressional hopeful, this time on the Democratic side. Welcome back. 2 Democrats are running for Republican Congresswoman Victoria Sparks' seat. Last week, we heard from one of them, Deborah Pickett. This week, our Garrett Berquist sits down with the other Democrat in the race, Ryan Finnegar. He's a tech entrepreneur who lives in Carmel.
With us now is Ryan Finnegar. Ryan, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Why are you running for Congress?
It's a good question. I'm running for Congress because I want to ensure that our children have as many rights, if not more, growing up than we did. And I think the way things are going in our country, that's not a given, and it should be. For the last 250 years in America, we have been in the business of securing rights for the people. And I will stand firmly against anyone or anything trying to take those rights away. I believe that women should be able to make their own health care decisions, free from government interference. I believe that seniors should be able to retire with the Social Security benefits that they paid into their entire career, not taken away by the brushstroke of some politician in Washington, D.C., too uncreative to figure out a better solution. I believe, and I'm running for office because I think every child in the 5th District and in the state of Indiana deserves a world-class education that prepares them for the workplace of tomorrow or for higher education or vocational training or for whatever they go on to do.
You've called for reversing the impact of the Dobbs decision on abortion access. Would you support federal legislation to protect access to abortion services?
100% I would. I think that, I believe, and as my wife likes to remind me, that every woman in this state, in the 5th District, in this country for that matter, is infinitely more capable of making their own health care decisions than some bureaucrat or politician in Washington or at the State House or sitting on a bench somewhere. And so I happen to believe that the Dobbs decision shattered women's ability to make their own health care decisions. And absolutely, if I'm elected, not only will I fight to reverse that, but I will absolutely fight to codify it into law. Now, further, I do believe that if we want to talk about life in this country, that there are some other areas that we really ought to be focusing on. For example, maternal mortality and infant mortality.
On your website, you say Congress should support policies that foster economic stability and invest in training that will support high-wage jobs, and you alluded to that earlier. What are some specific examples of policies to that end that you would support?
So I happen to believe that we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity here in the district to rebuild our small towns and our middle class. And I think largely on the back of the resurgence of American manufacturing and the onshoring of supply chains, back not only to America, but as we've seen Indiana already starting to be a big beneficiary of stuff from the CHIPS Act and some of these other things. Now, in order for us to continue to attract the world-class companies that we want to have here, I think we need to invest in workforce training and in education and in generally in making sure that our folks are prepared to meet the challenges that those types of jobs of tomorrow require.
What's your plan for dealing with the crisis at the southern border and the simultaneous crisis with our legal immigration system?
We clearly have an issue at the southern border. We need to make sure that our borders are safe and secure and that we keep out dangerous weapons and drugs and people who wish to do us harm. Now, the other side likes to talk about a border wall. They seem to be fixated on a physical structure. I'm an engineer. I happen to believe in the right tool for the job. And so to that end, I believe that there are lots of different technologies that perhaps might be more effective. I also happen to believe, and statistics would show, that a lot of the drugs flowing into our country come through our ports of entry and our points of entry. And so to the extent that we can improve the technology and the screening there, hopefully we can serve to reduce some of the inflow of those dangerous drugs.
What about the legal immigration system?
So as far as legal immigration goes, I fully support a robust guest worker program. I fully support things like increased quotas for H-1Bs and other skilled workers. I fully believe that if we are going to attract the best and the brightest in the world as it relates to the skilled workers stuff, that we need to make sure after we educate these folks that we figure out a way to keep them in America so they can build their businesses and they can generate positive outcomes from their ideas right here in this country.
You said you want a Medicare for all option. How would you pay for it?
Medicare for all who want to use it, a low-cost health care insurance plan that is run by a nonprofit-seeking entity, is vital to make sure not only that Americans are covered and they don't go broke by getting sick, but I'm also firmly in favor of people who want to keep the private insurance that they have. Now, I also happen to believe that there are a lot of things going on in our healthcare system, and this indirectly answers your question, but I actually think it's a big part of the answer. I think there's a lot of stuff going on in our healthcare system today that conspire to raise all of our prices. So we have lots of hospital groups who are consistently buying up physician practices, eliminating choice and raising price. We have insurance companies who consistently and continue to vertically integrate, whether they're buying pharmacies or benefits managers in the name of cost savings, yet none of those savings get passed along to us. And so I think a big way that we pay for that is to help try to increase competition in the healthcare system and drive the cost of delivery down.
Would you support continued foreign aid for Israel?
Israel is one of our oldest allies in the region. I happen to believe that is our duties to stand not only behind Israel, but all of our allies in their time of need. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't hold them accountable for the way that they act, but I do believe that if someone is your ally, then you need to prove, we need to prove that that is a lasting, durable relationship.
All right, coming up, Indiana's best political team talks Trump before the Supreme Court and Gaza protests here at home. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Tom John and Democrat Kip Tu. Let's begin with former President Donald Trump's hearing before the Supreme Court. Trump wants the justices to declare him immune from prosecution because, as he says, his criminal cases involve actions taken while he was still in office. Now, Tom, how likely is it that the high court rules in his favor on this one?
Well, I think it's pretty unlikely they rule completely in his favor. The problem is he doesn't need them to rule in his favor. They just need to not completely rule against him. And in this case, I think the most likely outcome is you're going to see the court tell the lower courts, you haven't given us enough information, enough facts, and it's going to go back down, which will kick it out past the election. And that's a win for Donald Trump, regardless of what the final ruling would be, if it even is not declared moot at that point.
Kip, I'll let you weigh in on this one as well, but also how important is this case in terms of, the broader precedent that it could set?
Well, to address the case real quick, I did have the opportunity Thursday to listen to some of it. I can't say I listened to all of it, but I came away with pretty close to the same analysis that Tom gave you. It looks like a majority of the justices are looking for a distinction between official acts and non-official acts. And if they argue about that internally for a while, it's going to delay a decision. I think, Trump people have privately said for a couple of days now that just getting it to the Supreme Court was victory enough because it helped delay the trial. And so he's done exactly what he needed to do, which was delay the trial.
In terms of foreign aid, guys, protests are spreading nationwide against Israel's conduct of its war against Hamas. Meanwhile, here in Indianapolis, protesters on Thursday blocked Meridian Street in front of the governor's mansion. Kip, beyond this election, is this kind of a permanent shift, in your opinion, in how Israel is viewed among young Americans, especially Democrats?
Well, I hope not. It's unfortunately under the leadership of Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's standing in the United States has continued to erode. And I think that's the direct fault of Benjamin Netanyahu. I wish young people had a fresher view of the Holocaust and understanding why Israel is there and why Israel needs to exist, and that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East that offers LGBTQ rights, that offers women's right to choose, that gives full measure to their citizens. I wish that that was better known. But look, the behavior of Netanyahu's government, the way they've conducted the war in Gaza, has led to folks abandoning them, and it's too bad.
Tom, your thoughts on this?
Well, they're a good part of this that I agree with Kip. I mean, I question much of what's happened and approach from the Israeli government. That being said, Israel is simply one of our strongest allies throughout the last many decades. And people are entitled to their right to free speech, but they shouldn't go too far in attacking a country that has so much wound up, both in its history of the United States and its importance to the world.
Right. Let's turn to state issues now, okay? The Indiana State Teachers Association has endorsed Jennifer McCormick for governor. Tom, should Republicans worry about this?
Well, I mean, that's sort of like the news flash that the sun rises in the east.
Right.
ISTA endorses every Democrat there is, and apparently their qualifications for a Democrat aren't very deep, because obviously Jennifer McCormick's only been one for a hot minute. So I think it really doesn't indicate anything for this race. And the reality is the governor's race is more than likely going to be decided next month.
Kip, McCormick is way behind the Republicans in fundraising. How much does this help her campaign?
Well, I hope it provides a boost. I think she needs to kick it up a notch in fundraising. The Indiana teachers, do have a pretty nice political action committee with a lot of money. I hope that they put their money where their mouth is, and I hope it spurs investment in her campaign. We need a choice in Indiana. One-party rule is not doing us any good. We have, outlawed abortion in this state. We've beat up on LGBTQ. We have fewer businesses in the state of Indiana than we did 20 years ago when Democrats had control. We really do need a strong two-party system and checks and balances in the state, and I hope that she can help us get there.
And speaking of the governor's race, on the Republican side, Suzanne Crouch has a major cash advantage going into the final full week. Braun consistently holds the lead in polls. Kip, from where things sit right now, which Republican poses the biggest threat to McCormick, in your opinion?
Well, that's a question I'm not sure I have the insider knowledge to answer as being a Democrat.
Right.
I think that, as I watch it, I think Brad Chambers' ads here, the last part, have been the best ones. I don't know if he's going to have the money to sustain that, but I kind of expect him to finish second, but I don't feel that way very strongly.
Tom, quick answer.
Well, the answer is all of them provide the biggest opponent to her, because they all win against her and they're all qualified, and we'll see what happens in May as to who the actual opponent is.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, gentlemen, good to see you. Good conversation. As always, we will be right back.
Go Pacers.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning, as always, at 9:30. And also be sure to tune in at 11 o'clock for The Hills Sunday with Chris Steyerwalt. Have a great rest of your weekend.